Well, welcome to the Happy Sensory Corner and Special Education podcast, where we ask the leaders in special education to share their insights and experiences with the audience in an effort to better understand how to support special education students in the school setting. So before we start our interview, I'd like to introduce our guest today. Our first guest is Heather O'Connor. She's a special ed director at Claymont City School District in Ohio. Welcome to the show, and I'm glad you got to be with us today and we worked it all out.
Thank you. Me too.
And we're also here with Claudie Pomares, and she's the creator of Sensory Enrichment Therapy. She's also the Chief Science Officer at Mendability, where they provide a unique program called Sensory Enrichment Therapy. It's an evidence-based brain stimulation program to improve the behavior regulation and learning abilities of all students, especially those students who struggle the most. And she'll be doing a short training at the end of our interview today. So thanks for being on the show with us again, Claudie. And my name is Christine Reeds, and I'm an occupational therapist, and I work for a school district in Boise, Idaho. So to start with, Heather, tell us a little bit about what inspired you to get into special education in the first place.
I was a student at the Ohio State University, and my bachelor's degree is in speech and hearing science. And I was just through that program, you're required to take some education classes and do some volunteer work. And the end of my junior year, I started volunteering with the Franklin County Special Olympics, and really just enjoyed that a lot. And then winter quarter, I'm old, so this is going to age me. But winter quarter of my senior year, I took a class for it. At the time, it was SBH, which is severe behavior handicap. Now, of course, it's ED in Ohio. I'm not sure what it is in elsewhere, but it's and I just felt like I found my people. Like that's where I belonged. So I finished my degree in speech and hearing because I was literally a quarter out from graduating.
Oh my gosh.
So I finished that, and then when I went back, instead of going back for speech path, I went back for special.
Wow. So you have a lot of diverse background with getting to where you are.
I do, yes.
Awesome. So what do you think in your school district is the biggest need for special education students?
A little more of my background. This is my 28th year in education. I was an MD, a teacher in the classroom for students with multiple disabilities for 13 years. And then I was an inclusion teacher for another 12 years before I took this position. And over time, we're seeing the need for the students is more behavioral support, I think. Mental health supports are something that we're really looking for. Those really, in the last few years, I would say in the last probably 8 to 10 years of my career, that has been something that we've really been wrestling with a lot, is managing that mental health component along with our students with disabilities.
And that's funny that you mention it, because I was talking to a principal yesterday, and she was saying the exact same thing about the acute, especially those kids that have acute mental health issues and coming to school, and how can we help them and keep everyone safe in the environment. So yes. Very similar. What do you think the last program or idea you brought to your school district, what was it, and what was the, let me rephrase this, start over. What is the last program or idea you brought to your school district that worked really well?
I think that kind of depends on who you talk to. For me, there's a couple of things that when I took this position, I had a couple of really major goals. My 3 major goals were to create an MTSS system that was universal. And we have 5 buildings in our district. They go pre-K-12. And so that was a huge goal of mine, that we were consistent from pre-K to 12, that everybody was working through, intervention assistance, having teams, having meetings, learning data, utilizing the data. So that was one goal. Another goal was our behavior supports. And we've reached out and we've managed to pull in um, a support system through our board of DD. And then we also, for our students who don't qualify for any DD supports, we have an in-house behavior specialist now as well. And then another program that I did start, which I absolutely think is phenomenal, but I know it takes time for my teachers, and I really don't like that about it because my teachers' time is valuable, and they, so. But it does give us so much information. And we've started utilizing Brawley. I don't know if you've heard of Brawley.
I haven't.
Brawley is I should get paid for this. Brawley is it connects to our IEP writing program, and it pulls all the goals in, and you can document all of your minutes and all of your progress monitoring on that. So the progress reports are just built for you at the end of every 9 weeks. And they tell you exactly how many minutes, what objectives you worked on. It automatically transfers over. The teachers just have to document each day how many minutes they worked on a specific goal, and if the students, like if they assessed it, what the progress was, and it just builds itself. So I find that program very successful. A lot of my teachers really enjoy it because it does give us so much good data, but it does take some of their time. So I understand that that can be a downfall as well. But all of those programs have been things that I've been really happy to bring to the district. And without my excellent teachers, though, there's no way that it could have ever worked out for any of those.
Excellent. Yeah, I've never heard of Brawley. Maybe I'll bring it to my special ed director and let her
Yeah,
know.
they're on the West Coast, I believe, but if you have to, when you Google, it's Brawley. I always Google Brawley special ed supports and then it comes up.
Okay.
Otherwise, you just get the definition for an umbrella.
Okay. Um, on the flip side of that, do you have a story about a program or idea that you brought to the district that didn't work well or even was just a nightmare for you, and we know what happened with that?
Well, I think, at times, even the successful programs had times that they were a challenge, or, buy-in's always hard.
Yes.
It was a real challenge to get the MTSS process consistent for everybody. We really have a team now that's working well with it. Unfortunately, I took this position in October of 2019.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, I just had gotten a little bit on my feet, and then we were shut down for a long
Man.
time. We were off and on for that year and a half, in and out a lot. So that also obviously was that itself was a nightmare, but
Right. It was for everybody, I think.
it's very challenging. But just working through any new process, I think you're definitely going to have some days where you question whether it's worth it, and if you just need to keep pushing through, or you try different ideas. And I try very hard to get input from other administrators or the teachers to see what would work better for them or what makes it easier for them. um, that's always the goal, to try to assist them as much as possible to make their jobs easier and not more.
Do you see, like when I asked you about the biggest need for your special education students, what about the staff? What do you think the biggest need is for your staff?
More time. It's very hard, and I don't know how we build that in. I think they always need more time, and I try really hard when we did implement Brawley. Even prior to implementing Brawley, I spoke with our superintendent and gave them a half a day every 9 weeks to do progress reports, because were my nemesis as a teacher. Like, I absolutely hated trying to collect all that information, and sometimes it's not as easy as, if you're doing it correctly, it's not as easy as just typing in making progress or not making progress. You have to collect the information, you have to have data, and that takes time. So I try to give my teachers time as much as humanly possible for things like that. I think that's always what they need most. And you know, all of us need to take care of ourselves. And I know we've got a lot of people who just, work constantly and, they love our kids and they care about our kids so much, but, they need to take some time for themselves too.
Absolutely. Self-care. I think so too. So they get burnt out so quickly, I believe, in special education, especially. Um, yeah. So the last question, and it might be mixed in with you mentioned some goals that you had that you got going in your district. What do you think your mission or your vision is as a special ed director?
Um, our vision is always to be taking care of our kids and giving them everything that they need and providing my teachers with the support that they need. Um, that sometimes can be very hard. Staffing is a challenge right now. It's hard
Yes.
for us to get substitutes. It's hard for us to find, it's hard for us to find more related services or speech paths, and OTs are hard to come by, and our PTs. All of that is a challenge. And, so my big picture is to just keep us moving forward and trying to be on the cutting edge of new things to help and support our kids, to make sure that we're, finding the funds where we need to keep us updated as a district, to keep our students progressing, and to help support the teachers as best we can. That's always the best thing.
So making sure those kids make progress and you're supporting your staff so you can retain them and keep having them.
Yes. We're very lucky. We're in a small rural area. So we usually have one of two things. Either we have people who've been here all the time, so they stay because their family's here. But when we do have move-ins, we have to find creative ways to try to keep them in the area. Because,
Right. Absolutely. Um, so last but not least, I'd like to give Claudie, our sensory enrichment expert, a little bit of time for a quick training.
Well, thank you for giving me some time. And today I'd like to speak about a part of the brain that's crucial for learning and that is sometimes forgotten in all the things that are done for children. And it has a very complicated name, corpus callosum. It's in fact the bridge that holds the two sides of the brain together. Mostly, I should say, is the pathway for communication. Like the two sides have to be communicating constantly and very fast in order for the child to learn, to remember, and for adults as well. So what has been found with research, now that we can take pictures of the brain as people are doing things like functional MRI, that a lot, to not say the majority of children and adults who have special needs, who have difficulty, would it be learning, would it be speaking, or staying calm at the desk, that their bridge, their corpus callosum, is narrower. Nobody can really explain why, and really there's nothing we can do to something that happened in the past, but we can do small things every day to help the child have a better communication left and right. So for that, I have a very short and very simple little exercise. When you see that the children are getting a little bit overwhelmed or too agitated, they cannot focus, you would just ask them to take two very different objects, one in each hand. So you will not have that in a classroom, which is a beautiful heart made of quartz, but it's very visual. It's for you to see that I'm holding two very different things. And you can count, you can say, okay, hold that thing for 3 seconds. And you count aloud, 1, 2, 3, let go. And now we're going to swap hands and we start again. And what is going on in the brain when you force the brain to process very different information from the two sides at the same time? And it's not something we do. Most of the time, we're going to use only one side, whichever that is, or we are going to do the two same things. For example, washing hands or putting a coat. We're touching the same kind of object. So, in fact, it's challenging for the brain to process two very different objects at the same time. Each object is giving four different object information at least at the same time, the weight, the shape, the texture, and in this case, the temperature. So these information, because the children are closing their hands on the same time on those, are crossing the bridge exactly at the same time. So you suddenly have 8 pathways on the bridge that are doing a very sleek, very fast information processing. It doesn't demand any skill. It doesn't demand really explaining. Modeling is sufficient, and kids have objects on their desk. All we ask is that they grab whatever that is, hold it for 3 seconds, and then swap. And we sometimes I will recommend 4 different swaps. At the end, the children are more settled because there is a smoother exchange of communication between the two sides. So they seem to have a refreshed ability to pay attention or to learn or to complete a task. And it is absolutely so simple. It could really be difficult to do anything that would be simpler and that ask absolutely no equipment. It is very, very neuroscience based and will have an impact if you were to do that every day in your classroom. Every time you see that something is going on and we need to get settled, well, eventually with time, this is how we change our brain, is by doing every day something that's a little bit different than the usual life. So that was my little suggestion for the day. So I hope it's going to be useful to all of you.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking of, I have a lot of students that I work with that are maybe in a room, maybe we call severe and profound, where they don't have a lot of skills, and doing something like that, even if it's hand over hand, they're able to tolerate it. And just using novel things. I mean, Claudia was talking about simple things, but we'd also use things with different textures and actually temperature as well. And students like that. It wasn't a real high cognitive demand, but it was kind of a relaxing activity that is helping build those connections with inside the brain for those students. So we did that a lot with all kinds of kids, but especially those kids, like I said, that can't do a lot of other things. So yeah, it worked really well for those kids, and the staff really enjoyed it because it was simple and easy for them to do. So all right. Well, thanks everybody again for being on the show, and Claudie for spending time on and sharing everybody sharing some stories and tips and experiences. So I appreciate you being here, and that was great. I'm glad we got to do this today. So thanks again, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.